As Stephen said, I'm Adam from Platinum Electrical Contractors. We have commercial, industrial, residential, parks, pathways, sports field lighting, and super passionate about our generator division. It's grown to be Canada's largest Generac generator dealership, and we really focus heavily on that. I was asked to speak here today. I hope to bring increased value to your inspections and your reports. By now, you've all come upon home standby generators or commercial industrial ones on the properties you're inspecting. I do realize also, guys, that I might take this to a more technical level than you normally would get to in your inspections. You might only dedicate so much time depending on what you've been hired to do. I'll provide the information. You guys decide to what level you want to investigate and use it. Before we get into what to look for, let's just start with a basic understanding of the system and its components. Standby generator system is comprised of two major components. That box you see on the property alongside the home, sometimes 300 feet behind the pool gazebo or just remotely located. If we're talking about Generac, the most recognized brand, it's going to be bisque in color, usually residential applications. It's about 2 feet deep, 4 feet wide, and 30 inches high. Some of the larger homes or properties or homes with higher electrical demand, you might see commercial units placed, and they would be about 3 feet wide, 6 to 7 feet long, and maybe 5 feet high. Regardless of size, what's inside that box is a gas engine that is the primary mover turning an alternator. The alternator is what produces the electricity, and a control board. Obviously, there's a bunch of more engine accessories and electronics inside there, but we don't need to dive too deep into that. Generators can be ordered in various voltages, kilowatts, fuel sources. The ones that we're talking about today that you're going to run across most often will be liquid propane or natural gas, and sometimes diesel. Capacity of these generators usually noted on the outside of the unit. Typically in residential applications, you'll find anything from a 7.5 kilowatt through 26 and soon to be 28 kilowatt unit. These are the smaller, more common air-cooled units. The bigger homes can be found to have the larger air-cooled units I discussed, up to 150 kilowatt units. And in commercial, we've installed units up to 1 megawatt. Second major component of the system is the transfer switch. You'll find it mounted either inside near the breaker panel or outside near the electrical meter. The main job of the transfer switch is to ensure that the generator power and utility power never ever meet each other. Transfer switches also come in different formats. They come automatic or manual. For our purposes here today, we'll discuss the automatic ones. I'm more than happy to field any questions on manual switches and portable generator solutions. They definitely can pose some risks. Some accessories you might find in these systems will be cold weather kits. They heat the battery and the oil for our climate so the generator can start up on those super cold days. Remote communication devices allows us to monitor these units via Wi-Fi and LTE. And load shedding devices. These are devices you might see that have the brand name of the generator on them, but they're located next to an AC condenser, a hot tub, any large load that you might want to shed if you are under generator power and you are encroaching on the generator's total capacity. This allows smaller, more affordable generators to be installed and still have the ability to back up these larger items when the rest of the house is quiet. You might also find upgraded bases and generator stands. Let's talk about how all these things work together. Generators are piped directly into the home's fuel system, be it propane or natural gas. The transfer switch is wired directly into the home's electrical system. If it's a whole home system, it'll be between the meter and the main breaker panel, and if it's a partial solution, it will be beside the breaker panel, protecting only those pre-chosen critical loads. The generator control board is always monitoring utility voltage. It sits there at the ready. When utility voltage drops below parameters, the generator starts up. The logic inside the generator control board will ensure that the generator is up to speed, producing rated voltage at the proper frequency. The board will electrically signal the transfer switch to mechanically transfer from utility power to generator power. And now the energy produced from the generator is replacing the lost energy from the street. Once the power returns from the street, the control board will ensure that the utility power is on and staying on, and then transfer the home from generator power back to utility power. Next, the generator begins a 1 to 3 minute cool down period, shuts down, ready to go again. That's a basic idea of the operation of the system. How can you best inform your clients when they're about to take ownership of a system like this. As you walk up to a generator, like anything else, if it looks neglected, it's probably been neglected. Does the generator appear to be filthy, filled with foliage that has made its way into the louvers on the side? Has the base become out of level and sunk into the ground? Has anything fallen on the generator, either currently laying there or in the past, evidence of it having fallen, something fallen on it in the past? Is the gas pipe corroded and rusted? Or also, gas pipe can be damaged. We've seen that as well. All of these things would obviously give you reason to look deeper and be suspect of the upkeep and current condition of the system. In the case of Generac systems, there is a status light on the outside of the unit. Is this light green? If so, it's a good sign. It means the unit is ready to run and has completed its self-test weekly up until this week successfully. The self-test, you probably already know, it starts weekly. Older ones will run 13 minutes, newer ones will run 5 minutes, does a self-diagnostic, and it shuts down. Green light on, ready to go again. Does not affect the operation of anything in the house while it does that. Is that light yellow? If so, the unit has a warning. The warning details will be found inside the unit, displayed at the control board. Yellow means it's operational, but has a warning message, indicating it may need professional attention. Is that light red? This would indicate a non-operational generator. It could mean it's been turned off, but more often than not, it's a sign of deeper issues. The generator will definitely not work and is in need of attention. Anything except green would be reason to recommend professional attention to verify the generator system's condition to your client. Your exterior look at the generator should include, first and foremost, its proximity to any openings into the home. Openable doors, windows, or vents, etc., because this is the most critical life safety issue with generator installations. Generators produce exhaust with carbon monoxide. We do not want carbon monoxide entering a home. Unfortunately, we've seen many installations done by others where the generators are sitting right next to basement windows, right next to dryer and bathroom vents, even air conditioning refrigerant line sets that pass through the wall and haven't been sealed well around the outside pose a risk of CO getting into the house. We've seen it. We've seen generators exhausting out towards AC condensers, even at a legal recommended distance, and the fan above the AC condenser has blown the exhaust gas up into the soffit, setting off CO alarms in the upper floor of the home. At my company, the minimums are not adequate, in my opinion. We exceed the minimums in all of our installations. We'd sooner walk away from an installation than lose sleep at night worrying about it. So all the manufacturers' publications are based on NFPA 37 out of the States. It's in relation to their gas code. It's a lot of overlap with ours. Ours doesn't offer numbers like it does. Most people will refer to a 5 foot rule. No part of the generator within 5 feet of any openable door, window, or vent. And I go further to say any permeation into the home, because as I said, we've seen it go through. You know, you see those hose bibs where they were caulked around in years past and now they're loose in the brick. We've seen it go through that. We've seen it go through line sets for refrigerant line sets, not caulked around the outside nicely, were sealed. One of the things you could notice immediately would be if someone's gone out of their way to put the generator in an enclosure. These generators cannot go in any type of enclosure. That is a major hazard. So some people, thinking they're being very responsible and tidy and the generator's unsightly, or they're preserving the life of the generator by getting it out of the weather, they are creating a very dangerous situation, and that certainly should be noted. A recommendation to call us to relocate to a compliant position would be in order. You may say to yourself, or someone might say to you, challenge you, it's been like this for some time, however, there's been no problem. If there's never been an extended outage, or if the wind was just not so on that day, the worst may not have happened yet, but it has had the potential to all along the way. What do we want to see in terms of distances? Key requirements are designed to prevent carbon monoxide entry into living spaces, ensure proper ventilation, and allow maintenance access. When we install a generator, we should be respecting multiple regulatory authorities. The Electrical Safety Authority for everything electrical, TSSA for anything gas code related, but equally important, maybe more important, is the need to make sure the manufacturer's recommendations have been respected. This applies to all manufacturers, as their installation instructions are similar with respect to distances with the same concerns. The larger manufacturers have all based their instructions on the US codes, as I said before. However, there's a lot of overlap. Let us use Generac for today's discussion, as it's the most recognized home standby system on the market. I realized, as I said earlier, you don't want to devote too much time in any one system in your inspection, but with some familiarity, you can very quickly point out obvious infractions or concerns. You can very quickly see if a generator is placed at least 18 inches off the wall from the rear of the generator. You can easily tell if there's 3 feet clear of anything at the sides and 1 meter clear in front of the generator. The manufacturer would say 3 feet at the sides and 3 feet in front, that the 1 meter required by ESA trumps that, because it'd be about 3 feet 3 inches, right? The generator must have 5 feet clear of anything above it as well. It must not be in any type of enclosure at all, ventilated or not. If you're looking at a generator in a propane installation, you should have 10 feet from the tanks to the generator. So we've discussed placement of the generator and manufacturer's required setbacks in regards to 18 inches off the back of the generator to the face of the home. That's the only measurement that supersedes the others with relation to distance from combustibles, which is 5 feet. So that would also supersede what I've said. If there's combustibles around the generator, they should be 5 feet away. Best attempts at to make a beautiful base with some pressure-treated timbers and limestone and patio stones that people go to these lengths to make it a nicer installation. Not that I'm overly concerned about these bases, but technically, illegal. That combustible material is too close to the generator. Only 18 inches, the 18-inch rule off the back of the generator is the only one that can be superseded for that purpose. More importantly, from a safety perspective, we have to be so conscious of where the exhaust ends up from this generator. The generator produces carbon monoxide, and as we know, carbon monoxide is a silent killer. Don't be fooled by the fact the generator has been placed somewhere for years and years with no problems. There are many variables that can lead to the generator not causing problems for years and being unsafely placed. There was simply never an extended outage, and the generator never ran long enough to produce enough exhaust to cause concern. The wind on any given day was not just so to cause the gas to accumulate and concentrate near an opening into the home. The environment around, this is a big one that we see a lot, the environment around the generator could have recently been changed. For example, when the generator was installed, there was no fence, no gate, no air conditioning condenser at its side. And now something is there, creating a nook or a reason for the gas to concentrate in an area. Or a combustible material, fence or pool shed, etc. are now within the danger zone of the hot exhaust from the generator. Any of the above can cause a fire hazard or cause a nook to be created, allowing gases to become concentrated, and with any permeation into the home, guess where they end up? Some manufacturers have gone away from stating an exact distance from openable doors, windows, and vents. There is a recommendation from most to maintain 5 feet away from any permeation into the building. Ultimately, it's up to the installer to do their best to ensure it's located in a safe place. In general, responsible installers do observe the 5 feet from openings to any part of the generator as a rule. My experience in some situations, as I discussed, it's not adequate. At Platinum Electrical Contractors, we try and observe more than the generally accepted distances as a minimum. But we also take into consideration the shape of the space around the generator, especially on the hot CO-containing exhaust side of the unit. When you're looking at the generator, the exhaust is at the left side. Consider a generator has been placed 10 feet from a window. However, there is a fence or a gate perpendicular in that spot, causing accumulation of gases to be right around that window. Is that window sound? Is it old and leaky? Is it new and well sealed? Some of you may have seen homes that don't have an intake vent on an old furnace. Those homes are negatively charged. These homes are constantly drawing outside air in from any permeation. They will draw in the CO. I strongly recommend that you take an excellent look at placement of the generator, keeping safety in mind, realizing that a recommendation to relocate an existing generator is a very viable option, just like recommending to repair a leaky faucet or fix a double tapped breaker. Platinum Electrical Contractors is the one number you need to recommend for anything concerning the generator. We will mobilize fast and provide any generator service required, from replacement to relocation to repairs. For those of you that are inclined to spend the 5 minutes necessary to test the system, with any automatic home standby generator systems, you're going to have one of 2 types of transfer switches, as discussed before. You may find a whole home style switch near the meter base or near the electrical panel, or you may find a select circuit type switch near the breaker panel. This switch is easily identifiable as it has its own small breaker panel within it, protecting the selected protected loads. We'll quickly talk about the sequence of operations so you know what to look for. Assuming you found the generator to have a green light or ready to run indication, you may remove the front cover from the whole home switch and flip the main breaker off. You would expect to hear the generator start. Within 30 seconds of that, you'd expect to hear the transfer switch make a snapping noise as the contactor closes, transferring the home to the generator's power. At that point, you could take a quick look, make sure that there's some lights on, and maybe a 240 load like the stove or dryer are operational. Then you can return to the transfer switch, return the breaker to the on position. You'd expect the transfer switch to make the same snapping noise as it returns from generator power to utility power, and the generator would then begin its cool down period and shut down with the green light on again. If at first you found the status light to indicate anything other than ready to run, I'd recommend notating the generator has a warning if yellow and a fault if red to your client. Assuming the system has worked as expected, you've extensively tested the system and have valuable information to include in your report. If the transfer switch were to be of the partial home or select circuit type, the one that looks like the small breaker panel, you'd go to the main breaker panel in the home. You would find a breaker marked transfer switch or generator, and that's the breaker you would turn off. That would simulate an outage to the select circuit transfer switch, and the rest of the procedure would be the same. When you're done, turn that breaker back on. If for any reason the generator fails to perform or faults out during the test, it would obviously indicate a problem, and you have valuable information to add to your home inspection report. I'd ask you recommend to contact us to rectify the issue in a timely fashion. Installations should be inspected by the Electrical Safety Authority. There should be a record of the installation having been inspected. It depends on your level of investigation whether or not you want to ask for any proof of documentation that the installation was inspected. You could also request service records to be provided to you for the generator. The manufacturer is going to tell you 200 hours or yearly. Yearly is a must, at least in our climate, for the reasons discussed before, the water. You can easily indicate that it would appear that the generator has been serviced annually as required and looks to be in good condition, and you'd expect to be operational. As we've touched on already, I'd suggest you look at quickly is the fuel line to the generator. Number one, the generator should be fed right from the fuel source. Fuel line should come straight from the gas meter, not tapped off the furnace line, not tapped off of a barbecue line or anything else that may be in close proximity that was easy for the installer. Any generator fed from a fuel line too small or sharing the line with other appliances as an afterthought will not perform under load. It will fail, and it will not be warrantable if warranty still exists, and you will have an unhappy generator owner. That's why part of why I say looking for that tag. The same way, if you see something's been inspected by ESA, you guys don't need to go check the size of the conductor. You got 200 amp service, it passed. You're pretty sure there's a 4-aught aluminum conductor in there or a 2-aught copper. If you see the gas technician's tag on the line, reasonable for you to make the assumption that the line is sized properly, put together in other regards properly. There is a reasonable assumption that it's been done right. How often I find that not the case, but as far as how far you guys can take it. But I will tell you that gas-related issues are 90% of the reason for generator problems, 90% of the warranty claims, mostly due to too small piping. 3/4 inch line doesn't service any generator really anymore now that they've discontinued the 7.5 kilowatt. There's no generator that takes a line that small, and certainly when you see them tap off of other things, the generator starts so aggressively, if you didn't have an electronic appliance, if it was an outdoor barbecue heater or something that, one of those warming tables that has a pilot light, the generator will suck the pilot light right out of it. Or if it wasn't electronic ignition, if you still find a furnace like that. So you cannot share, it will not work. And then what will happen again, another one of these things where it worked for years, no. It exercised for no load, with no load on it, weekly, using 30% of the gas that it could be using, problem-free. And then when you had a real outage, the generator carried the load of the home, and your wife and your daughter had the hair blower going, and this and that. It fails. and we see it too often. So gas, piping, big thing to look at. Condition of the piping, we don't want it to be corroded, we don't want it to be damaged. Another huge thing, that whip at the back, like all gas appliances, you know, they have that flexible whip after the shut off, right before going into the appliance. Back of a gas stove, back of anything, it's a flexible gas line. In the generator's case, as much as that line is allowed to be bent by gas code, it is not allowed to be bent by manufacturers' rules and regs. So that line is there for vibratory purposes, not because you couldn't line up your pipe and you needed a 22.5 degree or 90 degree fitting. If you blow the engine on that generator, Generac will ask immediately for pictures of the installation. They see that, denied. I know this probably isn't going to come up for your needs, but just wanted to be complete. Another thing, you guys that are familiar with gas stuff, you might be looking for a dirt pocket on these installations. You don't need to have one. It's built inside the unit. I realize I've given you a number of things to check that may be more technical than your inspection intends to be. However, with these things in mind, in some practice, you could inspect all these things in a matter of minutes. We get calls every week from homeowners who just took possession of homes. They have no idea about the generator, no idea if it's working, no idea if it's not working, no idea if it was serviced, and quite often very disappointed to find out that it is not in service during the first power outage in their new home. It was an attraction when they bought the house, and they don't understand how this could be the case if the house was inspected. To sum up, you approach the generator inspection with whatever level of technicality suits your service. You look for a well-kept exterior, a status light indicating the status of the unit, quickly look at the safety of the placement of the unit in relation to the openings of the building, a functionality test if you wish, a look at the fuel line, and a request for documentation if you want. Decent installations are well ventilated, far from openings, not near combustible materials, and have their dedicated fuel source. Bad installations and systems look neglected, are encumbered by items or vegetation too close to the unit. They are placed too close to openings into the home and have made modifications. No modifications are allowed, period. You cannot legally modify the unit in any way. And they must not be indoors or in any enclosure. Thanks.